we needed was one more person to have Joel. He would have made it.
That's it.
Lowe had him in 10th. Chill had him in 10th. Ox had him in 9th. Ron had him in 10th. KB had him in 10th. Pirate had him in 9th. Gifted had him in 10th. And Jordan had him in 9th. So he had a lot more votes than Embiid, but no one was putting him in 7th or 8th. That's how he ended up with only one more point. This is who Penn was talking about earlier. This is Dwight Howard. This is Dwight Howard. So all of us, well, except Penn, favored Joel over Dwight. But I think the case for Dwight is quite straightforward. He's one of the best defenders of the 21st century, one of the most impactful rim protectors, one of the most freakish athletes we've ever seen, someone who has underrated longevity in the fact that he was good for about a decade, like really good for about a decade. And that does get undersold because he was a disappointment in LA, or him and Harden didn't work out in Houston. But he was still a really, really good player those years. Not the same as he was in Orlando. He wasn't the same as he was from 09 to 2011, which I would probably call peak Dwight. But still, from about 08 to like 2015-ish, you're looking at a Dwight who's an all-NBA caliber player, one of the best rim protectors, like I said. My issues with Dwight mainly stem offensively. Someone who took up a lot of post possessions for someone who wasn't the greatest post scorer. His fit alongside other guys probably wasn't the greatest because of how much he demanded the ball. Obviously, the infamous situations with guys like Steve Nash, James Harden, how he didn't want to run pick and roll, stuff like that, which is crazy because he's one of the best locked ups in NBA.
Which he was best at,
like anytime Orlando ran pick and rolls, he was getting easy dunks or they was getting wide open threes, but Dwight just didn't want to do that. So it seemed like Dwight, I don't want to call him selfish, but I think Dwight had the best interest of Dwight Howard's before the best interest of the team, more often than not, in terms of how he wanted to play stylistically. But it still did ultimately work for large portions of time. Orlando were one of the better teams in the East for a few years, spearheaded by his defenses, spearheaded by the fact that offensively he was able to be a centerpiece of some solid offenses because of the gravity he drew. He was someone who drew double teams. If he did run pick and roll, you had to tag him, you had to commit, and then Orlando had shooters everywhere. So being able to build an offense around a guy like Dwight wasn't too difficult, and Orlando were ahead of their time in that regard. But the biggest reason why I think Dwight is fair at number 10 is just defensively. He was monstrous. It was a rim protector, and he was a rim protector in the sense that not only could he alter shots at the rim, the fear that he put into people, because he wasn't Bill Russell in the sense that he's going to block a shot, keep it in bounds, and start a fast break. He's going to block the shot with as much force as possible to try and tell you, don't come in here no more. And it worked, but also a whole lot of goaltends, a whole lot of times where he just doesn't get the block and he's out of position on a rebound or whatever the case may be. I think Dwight Howard led the league in goaltends like every year for like 5 years. It was a lot of goaltends, a lot of them. So there was a trade-off with that, but still as a defender, there's not much you can argue against in terms of how dominant he was, how efficient he was as a scorer, the volume he was able to put up. We're looking at a guy who's like 18 to 21, 22 points per game in that era with the gravity he had. I definitely understand having Dwight in the top 10, albeit I think Embiid was just a better player, so I valued that slightly more. But did you guys consider Dwight? Any of you?
I definitely did. Definitely
considered.
This is not, Mars, you brought up Orlando being ahead of their time with having a player like Dwight and multiple shooters with the gravity he had as a roller, offensive rebounder. We're going to talk about this later, but this is not the first time Orlando was ahead of their time with that type of archetype and that type of team archetype. But I do 100% agree with the gravity he had as a roller and offensive rebounder, the shot blocking, the rebounding, the lob threat ability. I think you brought it up with the shot blocking, how he could be extremely aggressive and he can lose position. Also, he wasn't the best. He would also like foul a lot, meaning like he also like some of his fouls were like head scratchers. Like think of Karl Anthony Towns and you look at why'd you foul him in that position. Sometimes I could look at Dwight Howard and say the same thing. Be like, that's not a reason where you could foul someone like right there. But what really got me back on Dwight Howard was the second stint in LA. Loved Dwight. Loved everything he brought to the team. Loved everything he brought to the team in the second stint in LA. Because when he first went to the Lakers, you couldn't tell me.
Everybody hated him there.
Yeah. You couldn't tell me when he first got there. You couldn't tell me we weren't winning. But
I mean, that was meant to be the plan. That was the vision. Pau Gasol
But,
shooting threes, and Dwight has a bad back, and Steve Nash getting hurt, and that ended Kobe's career, man.
Yeah. Kobe was supposed to get a 6th one, but we all did.
Okay.
But Dwight was great, and I did heavily consider him. But yeah, like I said, 8 through 10, you can convince me. And Dwight is one of those guys where it's like, I will concede if you have Dwight Howard in the 10, and you may not have one of my 3. But Dwight was a great player.
I wish I'd put him. I really do. Like instead of my
number 10.
Yeah. I really don't like my number 10 guy. I've mentioned that 4 times now, but yeah. So Dwight.
I think I know who your number 10 is. I hope it's me.
Dwight was great, man. I think, as someone who covered him coming out of high school in 2005 and just watching his ascent, I was so shocked that he was as good as he was, because typically big men take a longer time. Bigs especially take a longer time. KG took a while. Dirk, who was very young, he took a while, right? Jermaine O'Neal sure as hell took a while. So for Dwight to be as dominant as he was like a man child, Like, again, I'm ranking him compared to all the other high school bigs that came out, like Tyson Chandler, Eddie Curry, guys like this. Like, he was the best one, right, of those guys, apart from KG. So, yeah, and I mean, the team success, bringing Orlando to the finals, and it's like you can't point to the other superstar on that team. Like, that was a good team. Hito Turkoglu, Rashard Lewis, you had Jameer Nelson, shout outs to Jameer. You had a good team around him, but that's a team of like elevated role players and like guys who were stars in their roles. Like, that's like a team full of Andre Iguodala levels. There's nothing, he didn't have like a Kobe Bryant next to him or Tracy McGrady next to him to carry the offensive load. So yeah, like, I mean, and here's the thing, like he's a player who actually was better in the playoffs. So that means a lot to me too. So he's the anti-Joel Embiid, if you will, here, right? Like, as much as you want to say about the offense being limited, it was at least efficient. Like, it was very one-dimensional, but at least it was efficient, right? Continued to be relatively efficient in the playoffs relative to his position. He had a higher box response in the playoffs than he did in the regular season. He did manage to win an NBA championship. So shout out to Dwight, man. He was underrated as hell. I honestly think like he just had bad PR, yo. Like, late in his career, like he was just a joke. Got bad. Like, he was just a joke, yo. Like, I think it's just like, it's a lot of the off-court stuff. It's that viral clip that went crazy with Jeff Van Gundy. People started to hate him. The media started to dislike him. And it's just the conversation leaving Kobe, leaving LA, the way that he did, I feel like the conversation just got really negative around him, and it really overshadowed the player that he was.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, to talk about it more, just an insane athlete. I mean, that's one of the biggest things he was talked about as a prospect that Penn was talking about, was the biggest draw for him. I mean, if you go back and watch that 09 series, even versus Kobe in the finals, versus LeBron in the conference finals, he wasn't the best switch big, but man, when he was on an island, when LeBron would have the ball on the wing and it was isolated for LeBron, I remember he got this crazy block on LeBron. And remember, 09, this is where people say this LeBron James is the best athlete like ever. Like, this version of LeBron is the best athlete ever. And Dwight Howard, athletically, man, he was right there with him.
Do you remember what Dwight Howard averaged in that series?
26 and 13 or something.
It was something
26 and 13 on 65% shooting against Cleveland. Against Cleveland. And it's just, yeah, it's tough.
He dominated that series. That bigs. I remember they had Ben Wallace employed. It was Cleveland. They have no chance. One other gripe I had with Dwight, and I forgot to mention it.
Free throws.
2 other gripes I forgot to mention. Free throws is absolutely free throws is absolutely one of. He is such a bad passer. It was. I always tell people there's a series, I believe it's 2011, Orlando against Atlanta. Orlando ended up losing in 6.
Yep.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm pretty sure I remember
5 assists.
Dwight Howard had 3 assists in that series.
Yeah.
And like 35 turnovers. Wow. Like, it's bad. It's bad. Just a bunch of turnovers in any which way you can imagine.
33
33, okay. 3 assists, 33 turnovers. I was close to memorizing it. Not close to the 26 and 13. But point is, the tunnel vision, dribbling it off his foot. Like, he was turning it over any which way. Like, in that series, I'm pretty sure you'll find at least one instance of an offensive 3 seconds, an illegal screen, dribbling it off his foot, getting the ball stolen from him in the post from a double team, throwing the ball out of bounds, just a horribly inaccurate pass, or just throwing the ball away to the opposing team. It was just turnovers in every single which way you could imagine. That's my gripe with Dwight, but that's also the gripe with everyone I had in that range. For me, 9, 10, and 11 were all, I'm not going to say interchangeable because I'm very comfortable with my 9 above those two, but like peak for peak, I do think they're relatively close. But that's my gripe with all 3 of them. Just the passing, the playmaking, the vision was just bad for all 3. In fact, I think Embiid is actually the best of the 3, which says a lot about what the other 2 were doing, because Embiid's not exactly the greatest, but he's better than those 2. Dwight was bad. Go watch that series if you haven't. It wasn't pretty for Dwight, I'll say that. But I'm not gonna say that's why I had him off the list, but just the offensive limitations ultimately just kept me lower on Dwight. But absolutely understand him making it at 10th. In fact, I probably agree with him being 10th, if that makes sense. I know I didn't have him at 10th, but I probably agree that he's in 10th. Does that make sense?
It's funny because you mentioned that Atlanta series where he had 33 turnovers and 3 assists, which is just an insane stat when you think about it. But he also had 27, 15, and 15.5 in that series. He averaged 27 points, 15.5 rebounds on 63% shooting in that series, which is just insane. And it was against Al Horford, and it was against a very good Atlanta team.
So basically against Joel Embiid.
I mean, he obliterated a matchup that gave Joel Embiid nightmares.
Lost the series, but I guess besides the point. Anyway, number